Okay, welcome to episode number 2 of Dallas Does the Olympics, where Dallas talks about the exciting news that happened this last weekend at the Olympics. So, Dallas, what happened this past weekend at the Olympics that our audience needs to know about?
Well, of course, I wasted the first episode talking about Russia. And in the week since then, unless you're living in a hole, uh, the biggest news story of the Olympics is related to Russia.
Oh, don't talk about the teenager. Come on, don't just talk about the teenager.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not, because I will talk about that for more than 10 minutes if I started.
Yeah, we're keeping these episodes 10 to 15 minutes for Dallas, so it's quick, fast.
But I had to mention it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it if you care. If not, whatever.
Dallas doesn't talk about it, so it's not important. Not important.
I mean, it's quite important, but I just don't want to dwell on it. So I'm just going to talk about other things. So I'm going to start by talking about snowboarding. Lindsay Jacobellis is a snowboard cross athlete. Snowboard cross is 4 snowboarders going down a course at the same time, and the first person to cross the line wins, and there's like jumps and turns and all that. And it's down a hill. It's not style based, it's not trick based, it's just a race, and the fastest person wins. The first time snowboard cross was in the Olympics was 2006. Lindsay Jacobellis was the defending world champion, favorite. In the final, she was way ahead, and on the second to last jump, she decided to do a victory trick by grabbing her board. She lost her balance and fell. And by the time she got up, the person in second had passed her at the line. It was embarrassing, and she still was able to win the silver medal. That's how big of a lead she had. But she lost the gold by doing a fancy trick that she did not need to do. It was showboating, and it bit her in the ass. She's competed in every Olympic since. In 2010, she won the small final, meaning she didn't make the big final, but she finished first in the second final, meaning she finished 5th overall. In 2014, she was 7th. In the last Olympics, she made the final, but finished 4th. So off the podium. She's now 36 years old. It's her 5th Olympics. And she was dominant. Like, she was clearly the best. She was dialed in. She won all of her races easily and won the gold medal. So finally got that 2006 moment off her back, because every time you see a montage of people like losing because they celebrated too early, that was like the famous clip for many years. Then for the first time ever, they did a mixed team event in snowboard cross, and it was her and Nick Baumgartner, who is a Yooper, meaning he's from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan,
Iron
which is
River.
where me and Ryan are from. Specifically, yes, Iron River, Michigan. And they won the gold medal in that event. So that was cool. Okay, moving on.
Oh, I want to make these fast and quick. We also have to mention this guy's 40 years old, I think, right?
Yeah, it was his 4th Olympics. He's the oldest member of Team USA this year. Or either that, or he's the oldest snowboarder ever for Team USA in the Olympics, something like that. Yeah. And my roommate Amanda sold him flooring once at Lowe's. How about that?
Interesting.
Okay, moving on. I want to go now. Where do I want to go? I had it in my mind and then you. Oh, Mikaela Shiffrin, one of the stars for the U.S. coming into the Olympics. She's an alpine skier. She's the most decorated World Cup alpine skier of all time. She's won Olympic gold medals in the past 2 Olympics. Slalom is her specialty, but she's good in pretty much all the disciplines. She skied off the course in the giant slalom in her first run, because you get 2 runs in that event. Then her specialty, the slalom, she once again skied off the course pretty immediately, like the 3rd gate, just lost control and missed a gate and then you're done. She then proceeded to ski off onto the side of the course, and she sat there for about 25 minutes. And that was tough to watch because the camera just stayed on her the whole time, and people tried to console her. And she was far enough away that they just kept the competition going with her just sitting there on the side of the course. And that was kind of that. It's one of, for me, it's going to go into a montage of like sad Olympic disappointment moments, just her sitting there on the course. And I want to talk about that just because she was kind of billed as one of the stars by NBC coming into the Olympics. And you can juxtapose that to one of the other stars, Nathan Chen, who is a figure skater. He's won the last 3 world championships. He was kind of a favorite in the last Olympics, and he just completely fell apart in the short program. He won the free skate at the last Olympics, but he was so bad in the short it didn't matter. But again, like I said, he's won pretty much every competition since those Olympics. So he came in the heavy favorite, and he was able to perform, and he won the gold. So there's that.
You better hurry, Dallas. Your time's running out.
Shut up. I try not to be American heavy, but I'm being American heavy. Let me do some quick things. New Zealand won their first Winter Olympic gold medal. Zoe Sadowski Synnott in the women's snowboard slopestyle. Then you had Max Perot, also in snowboarding. He's Canadian. His win was disputed. People thought the Chinese athlete should have won. And then they found out later that one of Max Perot's tricks in the slopestyle, it appeared that he grabbed his board, but he actually grabbed his leg, which would have been a deduction, and he wouldn't have won. So the judges were upset about that they missed that. But I talk about him because he had cancer 3 years ago. He was diagnosed with, what's the one Greg had? Something lymphoma.
Hodgkin's
lymphoma. And he had to go through like 12 treatments of chemo, and that decimates your body. So the fact that he's been able to return to form 3 years later is impressive, and I think notable, despite the controversy of his win. Who cares? It's still a good story. Okay, now I want to talk about another American, unfortunately, but whatever. Erin Jackson, she's a speed skater. She picked up speed skating about 5 years ago. She started in inline skating, which a lot of speed skaters start in inline skating. But she was 24 when she first stepped on ice. And she quickly became one of the top sprinters in speed skating for the US. She made the last Olympics. But in the last 4 years, she's become one of the best in the world. She won 4 of the 8 World Cup races this season, so she came in a favorite. But her story is notable for a couple of reasons. A, she's the first African-American woman to medal in speed skating at the Olympics. And B, at Olympic trials in December, she stumbled at her start. And speed skating is interesting because they don't care about like previous like performances. It's how you do at the trials. And because she stumbled, she didn't make the Olympic team. Brittany Bowie made the Olympic team, but she's a 1,000-meter specialist. Erin Jackson is a 500-meter specialist. I didn't say that, but that's what she specializes in. Brittany Bowie, realizing that Erin Jackson has a much better chance of medaling than she does in that event, gave her spot up to Erin Jackson, which, of course, media likes to do sportsmanship stories like that, but it is kind of a cool thing that happened. And then Erin Jackson capitalized and won the 500 meters at the Olympics a couple of days ago. So that was kind of a cool story that I wanted to make a note of. What are some other things?
Quick fire them out.
Oh, I meant to look up her name, and what are you going to do? the Dutch are dominant in long track speed skating. They don't really have a history in the short track version until recently. The women won the short track relay at the last Olympics. One of the members of that team passed away from I think it was some sort of blood disorder a couple of years ago. Her best friend on the team is Suzanne Schulting. I love how Ryan is being very disrespectful to this athlete who died at a very young age by making faces at me.
And you got to hurry up. I said quick fire, and then you just tell a whole.
No, because I don't have any other stories. This is the last one.
Okay.
I already did the quick fire ones before. Suzanne Schulting. She won, I believe, the 500 meters, and then she won with her teammates. They repeated as champions of the relay. And of course, did it in honor of their deceased teammate, which is always kind of, a bittersweet thing. I
like how you purposely not covering the only thing I cared about. Shaun White did not medal.
No one cares.
And why? It's what every non-hardcore Olympic fan tuned in for. And you said, who cares?
No, what you need to watch is the big air competition that happened yesterday, because that was actually interesting and exciting.
This was interesting
and impressive.
Once
Half
Shaun
pipe
White
is kind of boring now.
When Shaun White's final run, when he crashed, I shut it off because I didn't care. But it was interesting because I watched the whole thing up to that point where the commentator was calling into question the judge's scorecard on. He's like, this trick has never been done. It was like some kind of flippy thing majig that I think one of the snowboarders from Japan did. I don't know what it's called.
I saw the controversy of that.
But he was like, that is a trick that nobody has ever landed in the Olympics. Nobody does this trick. He's like, it should be a 97. And then it came in and he was like second place. It wasn't even in the lead. And this guy called into question. And it's hilarious because you see the judges' scorecards and based on the country. And it was like the Japan guy, and USA gives him the shittiest score. It was like an 89 because they're wanting their people to be. I hate it. It should not be this unbiased bullshit where America can tank. I hate it. I hate it.
Figure skating. That's what figure skating has been.
Because you see it and it's like
all the subjective sports.
Yeah. Where whatever country that person's from, they rate it the highest. It should be, they shouldn't be allowed. It should not. I don't know who it should be. Maybe countries that aren't in the Olympics, you get a judge that is from a non-competing country.
Yeah, or they can do what figure skating does now, which is they randomize what judges' scores count. Like it's a completely random thing.
It's not fair at all that you see the American judge give a score that's 2 points lower than everyone else because their person's in first or second place or whatever he was. Yeah. It's kind of bullshit, but I was just sad that Shaun White didn't medal. That was my whole thing was just, it was sad that he didn't medal. Okay, Dallas, anything else?
There was a Jamaican bobsled team, which we always love to see at the Olympics, obviously, since 1988, the first Jamaican bobsled team. It's notable, though, this was 2-man, but there will be a Jamaican 4-man team for the first time since 1990 or 1988, the Cool Runnings Olympics.
John
that'll
Candy.
Be, yeah.
Nobody cares about the actual Olympics for that. It's just the fucking movie.
The movie is what made it.
Yeah.
The lore, which is funny because the movie is completely fictionalized. But the 2-man team finished dead last, 30 out of 30, but it's still a good story.
Yeah.
To me. And they didn't crash. And I thought there was many times where it looked like they were going to crash. So that was good.
One last thing. This is it. You got one thing. This is it. Pick and choose. Come on. You got one thing.
I'm just going to do the overarching, because I know this pisses Ryan off. The overarching theme of people competing for different countries of their own country, other than their own country. You see it with countries that It's been like ice hockey where they don't have a history of ice hockey. So like China is like half Canadians and Americans that play in China professionally, so they're able to get dual citizenship. Notably, Jake Chelios, Chris Chelios' son, plays for China in these
Really?
Olympics. He does because he
Oh,
plays professionally in China.
that's so sad.
Yeah.
Because he can't cut it and make the American team, probably.
No, no. And especially because it was originally going to be NHL players. And the only reason it wasn't was because of COVID protocols and all of that.
Which I wanted to make this short and quick. I think it should be NHL players because those are your best athletes. It's cool that it's like collegiate and whatever, but
And like
it's
minor
kind of
hockey players.
it's it's kind of dumb though. I know like the KHL didn't really participate for player wise, but these countries where you could have the KHL players, they're allowed to play, but the NHL has banned them before and not allowed. It's so stupid. It's dumb.
Well, the last
Uh,
Olympics, uh, it was an agreement thing, and the reason the NHL players didn't compete. But KHL players were. So Russia was
yeah,
dominant because
yeah,
they had KHL players up against like minor leaguers
yeah.
from
Which,
the US and Canada, which is a joke. Um, yeah.
but I think it should be the best hockey players in the world, not whatever
I mean,
college and
from
semi-pro.
a marketing standpoint, yes, of course. That's what people want to
But not
see.
even just a marketing standpoint. You want the best playing the best. You don't want, and these guys are okay. Like they're not the best. They're not the best
I
athletes
don't
in the world.
care.
You know, but
I don't really care.
shouldn't the Olympics be the best athletes in the world? It shouldn't be. This is like the 500th best hockey player that's competing for Team USA because nobody that's professional can play.
Yeah. It's just unique because you have a major sporting league involved. And hockey
The NBA
like
does it. The NBA does it, and it's fine.
yeah, but I'm just saying like the penultimate of hockey is NHL Stanley Cup. It's not the Olympics. For other sports,
But it
The
is.
Olympics is it.
But it is.
But
But
for
it
hockey,
also,
it's not.
I think it is for some of them, and I think it's more for hockey that Olympic gold medal means more than the gold medal in basketball because the gold medal in basketball is Team USA going to win like that. You never know in hockey. There's multiple teams that could win. There's what 5 to 10 teams that can win.
Yeah, there's more
Gold.
competitive. There's more
Where
competition.
if
Yeah.
Team USA loses, it's an utter disaster. Something bad happened. Like those are historic teams that lost when they're like what was it Venezuela or whatever with like Manu Ginobili,
Argentina,
Argentina, whatever. Argentina won.
2004. Yeah.
And then you have like what random teams that can compete, like Spain can compete sometimes when they had like
Spain,
the
Serbia,
Gasol brothers, whatever. But in France, I guess, has had, but they never really have a real
France,
shot to win.
Serbia. Yeah.
If Team USA brings their players,
No.
they just destroy. We're hockey, it's Canada, USA, Sweden. There's a bunch. Russia. There's a ton of
Finland,
teams. Yeah.
Russia, Czech Republic sometimes. Even smaller countries can compete too. Switzerland, Slovakia. But yeah. But as I was saying, athletes that compete for other countries. A notable one was Eileen Gu. She's American. She's a freestyle skier from California, but she has Chinese ancestors or family, however you say that. And she chose to compete for China, of course, with the political situation that's looked upon by certain people as an interesting choice because the Chinese government has kind of put her on a pedestal and are making it known this is an American who is choosing to compete for China. And she won the gold in the big air, and it was exciting. She won it because it's outdoors. There's more people, so it feels more like an Olympics atmosphere. And because they're in China, it was exciting. The president of the IOC was there. He was there with Peng Shuai, which I'm not going to get into that situation, but Google it. The tennis player who's being held hostage by the Chinese government after alleging abuse by a man who has ties to the International Olympic Committee. Anywho.
Okay, wrap it up, Dallas. Let's wrap this up.
And then the last athlete I want to talk about is also in this category, Kaylee Humphries. To make a long story short, she's most decorated female bobsledder. She was the first woman to man an all-woman, like 4-man bobsled team against men in a World Cup. She won the 2-woman event in 2010. She won it again in 2014. She is Canadian. However, in 2017, they hired a new coach and a former American bobsledder. She alleged verbal and physical abuse against this man. She wanted out of Canada, the Canadian Federation. So she filed a lawsuit. There wasn't enough evidence. And then she basically had this whole list of demands that she wanted in order to stay with Canada that would cost the Canadian Bobsled Federation a lot of money. They didn't want to do that. So she ended up getting dual citizenship with the United States to compete for the US. She can compete internationally, but there's weird rules with the Olympics where if you don't have a passport or something like that, you can't compete in the Olympics. So it came down to the wire. She was calling lawyers. She was trying to figure it out. And in January, at the last minute, like last deadline, she was able to finally get an expedited passport in order to compete in these Olympics for the United States. She's won world championships the last couple of years representing the United States, but it was an issue with the Olympics. She won the first ever women's monobob, which is just a 1-woman bobsled event. It's just you alone in the bobsled. And another American, Alana Myers-Taylor, was second. So the US went 1-2 in that event. And Kaylee Humphries is just a really impressive athlete. Like, I follow her on Instagram. Her training regimen, her body is insane. I'm just really impressed with her in general.
Okay.
So I wanted to highlight her. That's it.
Well, sorry guys, we went long. Can't control Dallas. Also, I went on a little spiel, but
yeah, it doesn't count.
Still 20-ish minutes, not that long, but
plus there was a double the amount of days.
Yeah.
Last time there's only like 3 days. Now there's like 7.
I'll give you actually one more thing. What is the thing you're looking forward to watching most in the next week?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked. If you follow women's international hockey, speaking of, because there is a women's professional league, but it's not that popular. The Olympics is like the main event for women's hockey. That's the goal for women's hockey players in North America, where the funding is bigger and therefore the US and Canada are dominant, just dominant. It's not even close with other countries, which is an issue, a deeper issue that needs to be dealt with by the International Hockey Federation. But every time they play, it's fast paced, it's exciting, they're talented as fuck. And they're playing for the gold medal tomorrow night. And the US.
So this is the day it goes live. I'm going to have it out on Wednesday, the 16th. So it'll be tonight.
Yes, it will be tonight. Canada beat the US earlier in the tournament in a game that really didn't mean anything. 4-2. Canada's won the last World Championship. And does look like the better team. And the US, their top offensive player, broke her leg in the first game of the tournament, so they don't have her. But every time they play, it's exciting. It's a real rivalry. They don't like each other. The US won the last gold medal in a shootout in 2018. So that is what the big thing I'm looking forward to.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear how this next week goes and catch up. I probably won't follow really anything, so it's exciting as usual. But yeah, this is episode number 2 of Dallas Does the Olympics. I think next week's the last. Is next weekend the last weekend of the Olympics?
Yeah, they are. They close on Sunday.
Oh, so we only have one more episode, guys. Dallas will do a recap of the past weekend, and then we'll let him talk about the Olympics overall and his thoughts. But until next time, see you guys later.
Goodbye.